We're on 90, tzaddik.
Mm-hmm.
Avagav this from Mekdoshim Kodim, even though we said that the the fetus is formed first, and then the Gid Anosha is later. And the question is, why does the prohibition attached as well? Because Asi Isser Gad Chadalei or Shekeni Isur Noig B'vnei Noach. Yaakov Avinu was already prohibited to eat the Gid Anosha. They were considered a Ben Noach. It was way before Matan Torah. So that gives us a special stringency. Man Shamas Lehai Svara, who gave us this concept? Rabbi Yehuda. But Masnisa bloke Rabbi Yehuda. But our mission is clearly not Rabbi Yehuda. Tani, Noeg Bibhemu V'chaya, that the prohibition of Gid Anosha exists both by a domesticated animal and a beast, B'yarch Shel Yamin and B'yarch Shel Shmol, with right-handed and left-handed Gid. But we know Rabbi Yehuda says it doesn't apply to only the right. So our Tana, High Tana, Sarvalo Kavasa B'chada, he holds like Rabbi Yehuda regarding one issue, Polygalei B'chada, he argues with him with these. Eimer Deshamis Rabbi Yehuda B'tmeya. This concept that the Gid Anosha has a chalos regarding a Ben Noach is only by non-kosher meat, like the meat of a pig. The Isser Lav, both have malchus. There's no kores, but kodshim, which if you eat it as a zar or bachutz, the Isser kores has a penalty of kores. Mishabasli, we don't hear that Rabbi Yehuda says that this aspect of the Gid Anosha that was a Ben Noach makes it more stringent. So, we're talking about a different case, a bechor, an animal that never gave birth, now gives birth to a bechor. The berechem kodesh, there doesn't become holy at conception, it only becomes holy at birth. And the Gid Anosha has already been created in the fetus, so the Gid Anosha is a prior prohibition. That the child of Kodshim they become holy only at birth, and the Gid Anosha, which takes place even while the animal is a fetus, it's an earlier prohibition. When we say that the Mishnah comes to prohibit Gid Anosha by Kodshim, that's only Kodshim that are eaten, like a Shlomim or Korban Pesach. Aval Kodshim Sheinanachon, for example, an Ola, which is completely burned, then Ein Isser God Noeg Behen. There is no prohibition of Gid. He says it makes no difference. Isser Gid Noeg Behen. Amrav Papa. V'lo Pligi. It's not that they're really arguing. They are talking about different cases. Kan Lal Kotza. Rav Yochanan is talking about getting Malchus. While Rav Chia says, Kan Lal Loisa, do you even bring up the Gid Anosha to burn? So whether you have to take it off, or do you have to remove it from the meat of the thigh before putting it on the mizbeach? For Kan Lal also, do you bring it up if you've removed it? And Rav Nachman Yitzchak Amar La Loisei Pligi. They argue regarding this business of even putting it up while it's connected to the thigh. Where do we see this machlokes? The Tanya. The Hiktir HaKohen is HaKol HaMizbech. Talking about the Ola. The Torah says the Kohen has to burn everything. L'Rabbi Satzomis Gidin Karnaim Hatlofim. The bones, the Gidim, like nerves and the tendons, the kronim, the horns, and the tlafim, the hoofs. Even though it's not considered meat, it's not basar, it's put up on the mizbech. Yachal afilu parsha. What about if they've been separated from the meat itself? No, in that case, you only put the meat and the blood, but not these other things. If the way you're learning, maybe you have to take off the tendons and the bones before you put it up. So how do you reconcile this? If the bones and the hoofs are connected, you put them up. Pershu, if they've already been separated, even if they were separated, you don't have to put it on the fire. Umantana, who is the Tana the Shamisle who has taught us to Omer Parshu Yerdu, that you have to take them off, well, even if they're on the Mizbech. Rebbe, it's Rebbe, the Tanya. The Hiktir HaKohenes HaKol, L'Rabos HaTzomas V'Agidin V'Akronim V'Aplafim, to include the bones, the tendons, the hoofs, Afilu Parshu, even if they're separate from the meat. V'hamani Makayim V'aliso V'asiso L'Secha Basar V'Adam, then what mitzvah Mamakayim because of that pasuk? The poikin, if the intensity of the fire has thrown them off of the grill, you have to put them back. Whether you have to put them back. HaKetzad, Ikule Basra Tamachzir, only meat that has been partially consumed, that have been kicked off the grill, you throw back. The Iyata Machzir, we don't return Ikule Gidim Vatsonim. The bones or the hoofs that were partially burned, you don't throw them back. That's the Tanakama. Rabbi Omer, the Hiktir, Kosov Echad Omer HaKohen, Kosov Echad Omer v'Hiktir HaKohen Sakol. Rebo. That's a general inclusion. Because of Echad Omer, Vasisa Osecha Basar Vadam, the Ola should only be the meat and the blood. Miyeh, that's a restriction. Haketza. Michul Bar Yalu. If they're connected to the meat, you put them up. Perish, if you've separated them, Afila Brosha Shul Mizbech, you already have to take them down. Rabbanon Michul Bar Lo Yitzrich Kolin. When the gid is attached to the meat, we don't need a special posture. Just like the head of an ola, it has a lot of bones, you put it up. So this would be no difference. We only need the pasuk if the gid had already been separated from the thigh, then it's a question whether you put it up. The Rebbe Michul Barm de Teira. The permission of Gid Anosha when they're attached, lo it's tzrichkol ribui. We don't need a special post to tell me you're allowed to do it. Ki it's tzrichkol Gid Anosha b'mechuber. The other parts, like the horns, etc., they're permitted to eat. The posuk was needed for Gid Anosha. That if it's attached to the thigh, there's a special permission that you're allowed to put it on. The Rabbanon, you don't need a posuk. There's a posuk that says Mimashke Yisrael. Minamutul Yisrael. You can only offer on the Mizbech something that Jews can eat. The Gid Anosha cannot. The Rebbe needed to have a chelev adam. Well, chelev adam, which are also not normally permitted, but you can put it on. Yeah, but there's a mitzvah to put blood in chelev. That you can't learn to get a nosha from that, which for all other animals we're not allowed to eat. All other animals we can eat. We can't eat the chelev and adam, but it's not. There's a special mitzvah performed with the others. Amar Rav Huna. Gid anosha shel oila. When you have the gid of an ola chotzol tapuach, you don't leave it in the thigh. You take it off and you throw it on top of the grill in the middle. Amar Rav Chisda. Mari dachi cannot happen. Miksiva ken lo yochal mizbeach. It doesn't say, oh, the Mizbech can eat it. It says, Al-Ken lo yachlu b'nei Yisrael ksiv. So we're not allowed to burn it on the Mizbech. But how does Rav Huna learn? Mimashke Yisrael menamutal Yisrael. It's only from things that are permitted to Klal Yisrael that you can offer. And Rav Huna points out that the Gid Anosha is not permitted, so you can't do it. Meisvik. Gid Anosha shel Shlomim mechabdo la'amo. The Gid Anosha of a Shlomim, which you're allowed to eat, but what do you do with the Gid Anosha? You throw it into the irrigation channel. But v'shel oila maleu, you offer it. Maila maleu maktiro. Well, then you burn it. Lo, maleu v'cholzo, you pull it off and you throw it into the tapuach. Why do you bring it up? Mishum shenemar mahakriveu name lefechasrecha. It's not covet to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to dissect the thigh separate from the gid, move the gid. It's not, you give the whole limb. Otherwise, it's not covet. Tanya kavasad Rav Huna, Gid Anosha shel Shlomim, B'chabdul for the ones that you can eat, you have to sweep that into the irrigation channel. B'shel
But tell
oila,
me, Ernie, that
yes.
irrigation channel is so big?
They had like, it was like a stream. It was like a river. Flows through the
Okay,
Azara. Yes. It was like
okay.
a sewer. B'shel oila, when you throw the meat of the korban of an ola, you throw everything except for the gid, which you put into the mound of ashes that are in the middle of the mizbech. Tanan also. Tapuach hayabem mizbech. This mound of ash was in the middle. Pa'amim hayalav kishlosh mezkor. There were 300 kur, which is like 665 cubits amis, massive. Amar Rava Guzma. Rava says it's an exaggeration. And the Gemara is going to point out other places where Rava said it's an exaggeration. Hishkus atomid bekoshel zahav. They gave the lamb that they offered the olas atomid water in a golden cup. Amar Rava Guzma. That was an exaggeration. Amar Vami. Dibra Torah Lashon Avoy. Yeah, the Torah sometimes spoke in hyperbole. Dibra Neviim b'Lashon Avoy. So did the Neviim. Dibra Chachamim b'Lashon Avoy. Dibra Chacham Lashon Avoy Hadamar that we just learned. Dibra Torah Lashon Arim Gdolos Uvtzuros B'Shamayim. That when Klai Yisrael came into Canaan, they were told there were large cities even in heaven. Dibra Neviim Lashon V'Tibakar Eretz Bekolam. That in the time of David HaMelech, there was a celebration that caused the ground to have an earthquake. These are all like exaggerations. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Nachmani, Amar Shmuel b'shlosh makom dibur chachamim lashon avoy. 3 times the chachamim gave exaggerations. Eluain tapuach, the size of this ash mound, gefen, uparoiches. Now what is this? Tapuach hadamoran. We learned it. Gu gefen, this not. Gefen shel zav haisoy menesal pischo shel echel. There was a golden sort of figure of grapes standing at the entrance of the Beis Hamikdash. Umudlo gabech kloinos. These golden grapes were hanging on poles. The Chomishaim is Nadiv Gargir or Eshkol. Somebody donated these golden grapes. Maybe Vitolaba, they would hang it there. Amr Lazar Rab Tzadok, Maisayev Nimnu Alea Shloshmesh Kohanim Lefanoisa. There were so many golden grapes that it took 300 Kohanim to remove it. That's a guzma. What's the parachas? This not Rav Shimon Gamliel Omer Mishum Rav Shimon ben Azgan. Parachas oivya tefach. The parachas thickness was a tefach. V'shivim u'shnaim nirim nereges. 72 needles were needed to weave it. V'kolnima v'nima esrim v'arbachutim. Each weave contained 24 threads. Arba arboim ba'ama. The length of this was 40 amas. V'roch ba'esrim ba'ama. The width was 20 amas. U'mishmonim u'shtei ribo naseh. Was made from 820,000 threads. Ushtaim oisim b'shar, they made 2 a year. Ushlosh mash kohanim matbil nosa. It was so big and heavy, it took 300 kohanim to put it in the mikveh. So the Gemara says that's a guzma. That's an exaggeration. B'yark shel yamin of yark shel small. The Mishnah said both the right and the left sciatic nerves are prohibited. But mastison's lo Rabbi Yehuda, the Tanya. Rabbi Yehuda imer ena noeg ela b'achas. But that's machras al shol yamin. He said only one of the legs is there a prohibition. It's on the right side. Did he know that for sure? Umay das Torah, that we get sort of information from the Torah. That's that. He was in doubt. Umay das noite. Maybe logic tells us that that's the way it is. Toshma. If you have leftover meat from the Korban Pesach, either bones or the gid or any meat, Yisrafu l'shisha, so you have to burn it on the 16th. Bavinamba. Hagidi ma'avitate, what kind of gids are they? Igi be'basar, if it's regular tendons of meat, lechlina, you can eat it. Either yaiser, if it's noiser, I know noiser. Elagidei tzavar. Maybe you'll say it's the neck where the tendons cannot be eaten, they're so hard. Ilav basar lishdinu. Well, if you can't eat it, you get rid of it. Amar Rav Chizda lo nisrach l'gira noshe. Korban Pesach that was burnt the gira noshe. But leave it Rav Yehuda Domer in a noyeg el ba'achas. That it was only noyeg by one of them. And we'll see because the gira noshe on the other one could be eaten. Right? If he was in doubt, you don't know which one it is, so you have to get rid of it. Both let him let him eat the one that was clearly permitted. The isur l'shadye, and the other one get rid of. What do you have to burn it for? It's not noiser. He knew. If they knew it, then they don't have to do it. But here they got mixed up. So you can't eat either of them. So they both have to be burned. Okay.
Okay,
Tomorrow, 9 o'clock.
okay, good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, Mario.